porque solo hay un tiempo limitado. Pero es importante a mí que expresamos que somos una comunidad bilingüe y que el español es muy importante a mí, a nuestra comunidad. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Miss Bridget. Even though I'm going to be presenting in English because of time, I always want to start in Spanish to reiterate how much we value the Spanish language, that we are a bilingual community, and it's something important to me and to our community. So families, whether this is your first time at a meeting like this or you've been to several, we're very grateful to have you here. Thank you so much to our district staff, our superintendent who is here with us to spend this time together. A few announcements. So we do have refreshments in the back with Mr. Juan. Thank you, Mr. Juan, who's always available. As you most know, we have childcare outside. If at any point you need to leave, you're welcome to exit around the sides or through the back. We also have a restroom over to this area. Three brief notes before we get started today. So one is people might be wondering why we are sitting like this. An important part of a Montessori education is we have children of multiple ages together, but the respect that we have for each other is equal, right? And so this is my interpretation of a circle, because it's a lot of people to put in one circle. And thankfully, Miss Sandra, our wonderful admin assistant, helped me figure out what this would look like. Miss Allison, our librarian, helped figure out logistics, so thank you so much. Mr. Devin in IT helped us figure out how to get the screen, so we're grateful that this gives a place where we can see each other, we can hear each other, and we are all coming at a level playing field, which is something important to us. The second piece is a celebration. So we know that this is an incredibly diverse community, right? We have families and staff and students from different countries, from different states, who speak different languages, who have different abilities and disabilities. We have people from different income backgrounds, and we have people who are new to Montessori, people who have done Montessori for decades, people who chose the school for Montessori, and people who lived in the neighborhood and walked across the street and are less maybe concerned about what Montessori can do for them and their family. That means that unlike some of the communities who are able to speak with one voice, that's going to be harder for us, right? Because we are coming to this with different pieces. But what has always been true about our community is this is a community that cares deeply about children, who believes in their child and their child's needs, but doesn't speak for their child over someone else's. And we've been really mindful in this process to think about an individual child, our children, the children in Northeast Austin, the children in East Austin, and the children in Austin together. And I know that's something that will continue today. The other piece, as you know, I am an emotional person, as many of us are. When we talk to students about feelings, we always talk about that no feeling is a bad feeling, right? And any feeling you have is a valid feeling. So if you came today and you were feeling concerned or frustrated or sad or angry, all of those feelings are okay, right? Those are welcome here. What matters, and we talk to kids about, and adults sometimes too, right, is how we present those feelings. And again, when you're talking about your own children or your own experience, it can be hard sometimes to not pit your child against someone else's child, or to accidentally say something that feels really hurtful to someone else. So something we've done really well, again, so far in these difficult conversations, to be thoughtful about how we share those feelings so that someone else who's hearing this in the idea of their child feels safe and welcome in our community. So I am very grateful and honored to be a part of this conversation. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Allie. Oh, we also go by first names, who's going to talk about norms for this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, that's loud. My name is Allie Gillarducci. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Communications Community Engagement. I'm just going to review our agenda and the purpose of this meeting, as well as some meeting norms that Principal Farr obviously teed off very nicely, before I pass it over to our superintendent for some remarks. So for our agenda, like I said, I'm going to go over the meeting norms and purpose. We will introduce some of the folks, and thank you so much. Someone had emailed me asking who was coming, and we all had name tags, which is delightful. Then we're going to provide y'all with an overview of the proposed changes that are campus specific, as well as we've marked them up with anything that was different about the latest release that you would have received on Friday. Then we're going to respond to questions received in the comment card. So our team has poured through all of those. We've looked for themes. In some instances, it might be a question with a specific person's name. In other instances, it might be a question that we heard multiple times, so we want to make sure we get to. We can kind of alternate between the pre-submitted questions and in-person questions. The only thing that I'm going to ask is that we speak in turn, and because we are recording this meeting, it's in English as well as there's Spanish interpretation, and I don't know where they are, but they are recording in, thank you. She's recording into a microphone in Spanish so that we can then share this meeting in English and Spanish. So if we call on you, please wait to get the mic so that we can capture the full experience for the recording. And then we'll talk about next steps. So I'm just going to briefly go over the norms. What we're here for is building the future together. We want to acknowledge the challenges of our current situation while focusing on ideas and solutions that will make our district stronger, more equitable, and sustainable for years to come. We want to honor. We have allocated about 90 minutes for this meeting. So when we do get around to giving the mic out to folks, if you can make an effort to keep your comment to around a minute, that just makes sure that we can maximize the number of folks who get to speak. We want to honor the process of staying on the agenda, honoring intent and impact. So we're probably going to disagree on some ideas, but I hope the one thing that we can agree on is the reason we are all here is to focus on creating strong, equitable schools for all Austin ISD students. We want to honor space and voice. So that means if you do get the mic one time and you have a follow-up, we're happy to allow you to have a follow-up, but we are going to try to not get back to the same person until everyone else who's had their hands raised gets an opportunity to speak. We want to try to stay solutions-oriented, so focusing on ideas, solutions, and understanding. And we here are committing to embracing transparency and empathy. We know these are difficult conversations, but we're here to provide compassion, clarity, and honesty. And so that means if you ask a question and you feel like we didn't answer it very well or it felt like it was sidestep, please feel free to ask a follow-up. We want to make sure you leave with your questions truly answered. And then just the purpose of the meeting, kind of reiterating, we want to make sure that we're responding to some of those questions that came up multiple times through the comment cards. We want to make sure we all have a shared understanding of what's actually being proposed at this stage in the process. And we, as administration, want to gain insights that are going to inform additional refinements that could be folded into the draft plan that we ultimately ask our board to vote on November 20th. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our superintendent. He's going to share a little bit about the context of the environment we're in, the why behind this process, before we get into the comment cards and Q&A.
I've got one.
Oh, I think you're supposed to use this one. I don't know why.
Okay. So I love that this is Bridget's interpretation of a circle. No, this is fantastic. Thank you all for being here. I know these are difficult conversations, difficult time. I want to make sure we're responsive and create space. This is your time. I do think it's important, before we get going, just to share with you how we got here and why this plan is the current draft plan. Again, draft, it will refine, there will be adjustments to it. Like, things are really hard right now. They're just really, really hard in Austin ISD, in public education. And I would say the board and I are desperately trying to find a way to stabilize this school system that we love and ensure that every student gets what they need where they are. Which is why we are talking about neighborhood schools and the importance of them. In Austin ISD, we have lots of families that don't believe that the school that they're zoned to serves their family needs or their student needs. And that's a problem. Like, that is a huge problem for our school district if we are going to be sustainable and support our students in our way moving forward. And so when we started this work, there were a lot of things that were the catalyst for us just starting. The first was recognizing that no one's going to come save us when it comes to our budget challenges, the inefficiencies we have in our system, the declining enrollment. Like, no one's going to help us. The second thing was these budget challenges that we have, they're exacerbated by the declining enrollment. But I also want to be really clear, the changes in the federal government have put immense pressure on our system. I don't often talk about it because it's not talked about a whole bunch, but Title II, Title III, and Title IV dollars, which were previously frozen this year, then released, they will be going away. All right, and these are millions and millions and millions of dollars that we use to serve our students who've been historically underserved. Like, that's the reality of it all. Many folks within a VETS team, our multilingual education team, were impacted by these decisions. And so each and every time something happens to us, I have to try to figure out a way to, take the body blow, because that's what it is, figure out how to protect who we are as an organization and ensure that we're viable to meet our students' needs. That's really a lot of what we've been tackling. And then you add on top of that what we want to do as a school system and who we are and what we believe in. Right? The last 2 years, we had lots of conversations around what we believe in, and each of those things had an impact on where we are now. About 18 months ago, we had a real conversation around planning time. We've had conversations around essential areas. We've had conversations around protecting librarians. We've had conversations around protecting nurses. There are all these things that we as a school district have said we believe this is what's necessary to support our whole child. And if we hold those things true, we have to acknowledge there's going to be resources deployed in order to support it, right? Dollars. We also know that for us, and I believe this to the core of my being, that we begin and end in the unit of change are our educators in the classroom. They just are. When we were coming out of the pandemic, we had tons of vacancies throughout the school system. We had tons of vacancies within our principalships, and we have been pulling ourselves out of that moment in time. And what made things even worse is that you had change after change after change within the leadership of Austin ISD. And so as we move forward, what we had to take on had to be significant enough for us to be able to move the system and evolve. The state accountability system is not going away. It's not. I get asked all the time, Matthias, challenge this, Matthias, challenge this. What we know is that our commissioner has immense authority. What is said goes, and if we're not responsive to it, no matter how much we feel otherwise, we will be put in a position where local control could move away from us. And it can happen, and it can happen quickly if you're not very responsive to it. The other thing is when we look at solutions or we look at plans long term, we want to make sure that we are identifying solutions that might not otherwise exist because we brought people together and we tackled many things at one time. And so this plan includes several elements. I'm going to just quickly lay them out so that if you're understanding, Matthias, why did you consider this and not this? You'll see how these overarching objectives were considered. First, we wanted to have aligned feeder patterns everywhere in Austin ISD. They're not perfect because we are an organization that's been around for 44 years. Maybe I should move to this part of the circle. And our boundaries were built out of our...
Switch microphones. Just switch microphones.
Switch microphones. I'll turn that off. So we've been built out of a series of decisions and boundaries for over 144 years, right? And there are plans that were made. There's desegregation that occurred. There were lots of things that informed how our boundaries came to be. And right now what we know is that there are certain experiences that students have in parts of Austin where they have very clean, quote unquote, clean feeder patterns. And there are parts of Austin, and you can guess where these are, where we don't have clean feeder patterns. So what does that mean? It means that you have middle schools that are going to 3, 4, and 5 high schools in some parts of Austin. And then you have schools in other parts of Austin, and guess where they are, where one middle school goes wholly into a high school. And so if we're ever going to address that, it has to be a comprehensive change because every high school boundary has to align with every middle school boundary, and those middle school boundaries have to align with those elementary school boundaries. So that was one big objective that we had in this effort. 2, we wanted to address our transfer policies and our operating procedures around them. We've got policies in place that have been around for decades. And the reality is that some of these policies have brought into our school system behaviors that I don't think represent who we are now. And so if we're going to be thoughtful about it, we need to look at them and make adjustments, and this plan attempts to do that. The third thing, programmatic alignment. And I'm going to include Montessori in this kind of bucket of elements of kind of the overall plan, draft plan. And it's that we in Austin ISD, and I would say I certainly believe that we want our students to have access to programming in Austin ISD that's unique to Austin. But I also want to be really clear about what does access mean. Access may sound great, but if we're not providing transportation or if it's not located geographically to where anybody can reasonably get to it, it's not accessible. When I think about the wall-to-wall dual language programs, which is kind of a big part of this aspect of the work, the intent originally, as it was formed, was to ensure that our emergent bilingual students were the center of the program. And what we've seen over time, as the city has changed, that we're within, the number of students who are emergent bilingual has begun to decline and continues to decline. So in order to provide access, we need to move where those students are, right? And then really think about how we ensure that they stay in that community and access these schools. The other thing I'll say is reduction in overall, I would say improvement in efficiencies, reduction in overall costs. This is the hardest one to talk about because it's hard to talk about funding or dollars and cents because it can seem so removed from the classroom. It just seems so like just sterile and not loving. But at the end of the day, everything we do requires funding. Our compensation for teachers, which represent our staff, is 87% of our budget. The curriculum that we acquire, we spend millions and millions of dollars every single year on our curriculum, and I can promise you there are less expensive alternatives, but I am certain that this community and many communities around Austin would not support that curriculum if I pursued it, though I could save $8 million. And when we think about how we reduce our overall kind of costs as a system, we start with where we misaligned. And for us, that represents the number of empty seats that we have in our school system. It's one way to look at it. It's not the only way to look at it, but it's one way to look at it. And so as a school system, and y'all have heard me say this before perhaps, maybe you haven't, in 1996, we had about 96 schools. It's kind of funny that it matches up that way. In 2025, you have 116, and you had roughly the same student population at that time as you do now. Now, there's a big increase in between and then a decrease, but just for context, we've grown with the city, and as gentrification has occurred, as families have been priced out because of how costly it is to live in Austin, families have moved, but our buildings have stayed. So in order for us to tackle that, we have to think about the whole and make adjustments as part of that plan. And then lastly, and I think this also considers why we're here today and talking about Winn, Montessori is just the reality of the accountability system that we're in. I tell people till I'm blue in the face, our schools are doing incredible things. And I actually use Winn as an example often because people will say, well, this school's not performing, this school's not performing. I'm like, no, but our schools are so much better, more than a letter grade. They are. And this is a great example of what that means, but it's not known to everybody, especially when you're talking at a 5,000, 10,000, even 20,000 foot level. That connection doesn't always come across. But the reality is if I'm not responsive, if AISD is not responsive to the turnaround plans and the risks within them as a function of time, because you have 1 UA, 2 UA, 3 UA, 4 and 5, then we as a school district could inadvertently, without really understanding, introduce risk that would take local control away, right? And it's happening right now in Fort Worth, and it happens relatively quickly. So all of that is woven into this plan. It's not a perfect plan, no plan is, but I want you to know that when we look at different changes or elements of the plan, we're trying to address as many of these things at the same time. So I'm committed to listening, I'm committing to refining. I will share with you that when we started this process, I felt strongly that Montessori needed to be part of our academic program, which is why it's included. But I also had to address other things, which I just mentioned, including accountability, seats, et cetera, with everything else around. So I'm gonna, I know we have lots, I wanna create space for you all to have the conversation with me and with the team. We have questions that we've received from you all that we're happy to respond to, but I don't want it to feel as though this is not your time, right? So I'm happy to make an adjustment however you'd like, but I wanted to share with you at least that you can make adjustments.
Yeah, before we get started, I just wanted to see if you could touch on one other thing because it kind of came to our attention.
Yeah.
I know some folks were watching the board meeting on Wednesday, And there was conversation around the compatibility of Montessori with the STAR test. And I know I shared, y'all, I think someone created these resources and we shared them with our superintendent earlier today, and I just wanted you to touch on that a little so folks kind of understand where you're at with that.
Yeah, so I would say from my perspective, where those conversations stem from, it's this reality that the state accountability system is fairly rigid. There are ways to approach movement that sometimes can be very quick to achieve your goal, but there are things that perhaps others do, like Austin ISD, which are sustained long-term like growth, to where if I'm here or the trustees are here, anybody's here, AISD will continue to thrive. When it comes to Montessori, one of the critiques that has been out that we need to be honest about is the fact that, you know, when you have students kind of blended in classrooms, it becomes harder to ensure that the interventions are coming into the space to make sure that our students are getting what they need to be successful on the assessment. No one disagrees that students are getting what they need at Winn. I want to be really, really clear. Like, we believe and we see, not only through the data, but also just who Winn is, the Winn campus is, that outcomes are moving, there's no doubt. It's just when you think about what fits and what doesn't fit easily into the state's accountability system, Montessori is one that doesn't fit easily. Doesn't mean that we can't do it. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. It just means that we have to be hyper thoughtful, be very responsive, and ensure that the resources are deployed to ensure success. That's what I mean when we say that. Also, it's not lost on me that Winn Montessori is one of 116, right, in Austin ISD. In the state of Texas, I can't imagine, it might be 100 out of like 1,000. I mean, it's going to be, it's not a program that typically is the focus of those types of larger conversations, which puts us at risk at times whenever we're going through that work with that lens.
Okay, and did you want to quickly go through just kind of what's proposed and what has changed since Friday?
In the draft plan, I know that all of y'all are aware, it contemplates relocating Winn Montessori to Go Valley. Again, there was questions that came out of the board, and there was a statement that was made in the cover letter, which I'm sure y'all read, which means we're still continuing to explore this specific move. Why is this doing? I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want y'all to get frustrated. You want me to talk louder? You want to talk loud? Oh, the recording. All right. So we'll try that again. So what it means is that the students who were zoned to Winn will now be rezoned to Andrews Elementary School and Hart Elementary School.
Could we maybe try turning down the mic a little?
That would be the coolest thing ever if that was, that sounds, I thought it was my Apple Pen. I have an Apple Pen, which I somehow lost, it seems like. So we'll try to see how this works. So because Winn has a TAP, we have to reassign the students if we're going to use that turnaround strategy. Right? There are other strategies that can be used. There are 6 of them, in fact. But TAPs typically are produced and implemented at year 2, so 2 UA. Once you get to your 3rd UA, which is where we are, you have fewer and fewer options that are truly viable, and when I say viable, I mean to be accepted by the agency. It doesn't mean that we couldn't do it. It just means that the agency has built a system that says the further you get along in a process, the fewer options you have. Which is why for us, there are reassignment, restart, district restart, or AT2 restart. Right? Those are kind of the available options given the number of UAs that we have that we're working with here. And I want to be really honest, the work that y'all are doing, I'm sorry.
Take 2. Turn the microphone off.
Can you turn your mic off real quick? He's going to adjust.
It's off.
Turn it back on.
Now? I think it's that speaker, isn't it? It seems like it's almost that speaker.
It's coming through both the speakers.
While we're waiting, if you can turn and introduce yourself to your neighbor and tell them your favorite thing about Winn. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you so much, Superintendent Segura. I know it's hard to have conversation. If it happens again, I'll come up with a new topic for you to talk about. Take it away, Mr. President.
So amazing. We talked about kind of the original draft of the plan, right? And I want to be really clear. When we started this work, again, like I said, supporting Montessori and providing the programming was important. We had to break the accountability chain, which meant we had to reassign the students. We still wanted to make sure that all students had access to the program that were currently in the program, which is why you saw us address transfers in the way that we did in the revised plan. And we were also trying to place the program in a part of the city that would keep another school from closing. And the reason I say that is because when we look at areas of the city, we know that in some areas we have lots of growth. In other areas you have lots of decline in enrollment. And whenever you can place a district-wide program in an area that doesn't have enough seats, it actually helps you has too many seats, it actually helps you not have to close an additional school. So those are the two things when we were evaluating how this could work, why we chose that strategy at that time. I will say, I've read lots of Nadia's emails, I've read lots of other emails. And so are there other options? There are things that can be considered. The one thing I want to be really thoughtful around is anytime you introduce a new option, you introduce more like energy and anxiousness and fear into the process and the system. And so even at the work session when we were being responsive to trustees about exploring Ortega or Zavala, even those conversations, which I'm committed to exploring, requires me and engaging with those communities to make sure that we do it well, that we're thoughtful, and everybody understands why it came about, right? And so that's one of the things that I want you to know is still underway right now. We're still trying to find the solution for this, how this is going to work. I can't say that we're there. The conversations haven't completed, but that is where we are in the process. Now, there are other ideas that were brought forward. I'm sure you'll have questions around them, and we can talk about those as well and what that could or couldn't look like given the timeline that we're on. So just wanted to make that point, and then I talked about transfers. I think it's just really important to reinforce, our commitment to ensuring that if you're a student who currently has access to the program, you will have a seat available for you wherever the program goes. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
I would like to go first whenever you're ready.
You can go ahead. Go ahead, let's go. I mean, yeah, we don't need I want to make sure it should be a dialogue. It should be a conversation. It shouldn't be us just talking.
We'll go with you first. I love your sweatshirt.
Thank you so much. The reason I want to go first is because I want to address something that you just brought up. That is kind of how we are here. But, I think a lot of this community wants to just address maybe misconceptions or things that we hear when we listen. Like, we're so much more engaged than anyone ever thought you would need to be. And one of those is just a big difference in the handling of wall-to-walls. So the wall-to-wall dual language programs were moved to the population that needs to be served, whereas Winn is being moved away from the population that needs to be served in order to solve a district problem. And that led to you guys spending 45 minutes talking about Montessori as an instructional model and never once discussing these students, with the exception of the fact that they shouldn't go into a new school. And that was, I know, not intended to be hurtful or dismissive, but everyone who has a student at this school, my student is in his 8th year at the school, felt it immensely because genuinely, not once were any of these students discussed in that discussion. And again, the wall-to-walls are moving to their population. This program is moving away from its population, which matters because if you are going to introduce a bunch of new students to Montessori, part of what makes it work is the students around them who start working because they were told to start working and don't need that small group instruction on everything from the start, which is why we grew Montessori 1 grade at a time when we started it. So moving this program away from its population that makes it work, right? DL works when you have 50% EBs, and we're moving towards those EBs. Montessori is really similar, and we are moving away from those students in the plan as discussed publicly thus far, which is why we're so focused on staying in Northeast Austin.
Yeah. So, no, great question, and this was a point of reflection for me after the board meeting, like, because I read the emails, and I was reflecting about, how that conversation came about, and it's all my fault. I mean, it really is. It's, my job is to position the trustees to have a thoughtful conversation around any topic within the plan, and we kind of had the conversation based on, my interpretation of what I received from trustees, and so we couldn't tackle everything. I mean, we're pretty pressed for time, y'all. Like in these meetings, it's pretty unfortunate, but I have like 20 minutes per topic, and we went over like an hour and a half. So I want to apologize. I never want any family or any student to feel as though they don't have a voice in Austin ISD. That's not our intention. I'm sorry that it came off that way. That's not how I ever want to be. So I'm sorry. Regarding where the students are, one of the things I would ask is, when you say that, is it defined by a geographic region primarily, or is it defined by? I have the map. But it's. I have the map. No, but it's where your current students live, right? And so I just want to like make a. Like, I want to be. It's where the current students live. I've seen this map. Yeah. I read my emails, y'all. Like I spend time when I'm like at 3 a.m, like sitting there, like that's what I'm doing. So when we think about student populations and where they are, is it inconceivable that a Montessori program could be successful elsewhere in the city? I think I don't disagree. I think that any program that we have, just the way when we started up General Marshall, you start 6th, the next year is 6th and 7th, the year for that 6th, 7th, and 8th. You have to be very thoughtful about how you start a program. But it's not. It's based on how you start it, not always in the student population that resides in that area. Now, with emergent bilingual students, like we know where they live and we know where the density of students are. So I would say we didn't apply the same strategy for that reason. And we always talk about programs have moved and can move. That's just the history of Austin ISD. There are things that have grown. Like at one point there wasn't a Montessori here, and at some point there was, and and that happens all throughout Austin ISD. So maybe because we approached it in that way, we took that approach that led us down that direction. Keeping it in this area is not. I mean, I've read again Nadia's emails. I think that there are things that can be explored, and we'd also have to acknowledge that we would run into the other challenge that we have, which is the seats. So I think that's something that we're continuing to explore. There's not a lot of I always have to acknowledge that if that's the case, then this other challenge that we have as a district, remember, a district that I am trying to address, wouldn't get addressed in the same way, right? And that's just the honest truth. But I appreciate that comment, and that's why we built it out to make it.
Question from the comment card. Is Sarah Enther? So I just want to make sure I understand the question, but I want to make sure I understand kind of the why behind it, so there's a follow-up.
So the question is, will schools in the 78723 area have a full day pre-K 3 and 4? Which schools will accept students who aren't eligible for tuition free? Ms. Cardenas, can you address this one?
Thank you so much. So this is a great question, and we're working on this, and I'll share with you why. So the pre-K 3 is interesting. I can tell you that we have a current list of pre-K 3 campuses, just for reference. And Allie, I'll make sure to share that with you to see if we can add it to the October 31st. On the October 31st, we did provide a list of all of the projected pre-K 4 campuses so that you could start to see where those are offered. The reason the pre-K 3 is a little more challenging to answer is because we have partners with our pre-K 3 also. So today I met with one of our partners, and we're agreeing that after November 20th, If the vote is yes, then we will, with all of our pre-K3 partners, get together, right, to see which campuses. We want to be very mindful about where our families are, where the needs are, and our partners as well. And just to give you some background, our pre-K3 is half-day program, but with our partners, it allows for that full-day program as well. So that's coming. Please take a look at the list of projected pre-K4 campuses, which are on the October 31st draft, and we'll add the current campuses to October 31st also so that you can see where they currently are.
So clarifying question, is the plan to provide full day pre-K3 and
We're gonna occupy the teachers by half day with teachers, half day with a third party.
For the pre-K3, we do need to look at, because of consolidation also, right? There could be some programs at a school that is proposed to close or consolidate. So we need to go back and look at where our partners are going to be, where we have our pre-K3 half day and then our pre-K3 with partners. So it's not to avoid answering the question, there's a process for making sure that we've got our pre-K3 programs where they need to be, and they start off as half day, and then with partners we're able to offer the full day.
Thank you, and I'm coming here to this person here for this next question.
Before I pose my question, sorry, the corporate communications professional in me.
Can you talk as close to the microphone?
Yes, I can. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to clarify with her question that basically, I want to make sure that I'm getting this right. The gist of what it comes down to is either we keep Montessori in this location and you're not starting from scratch, or you're moving the location and you're starting from scratch. Like, that's the difference.
So when we talk about starting from scratch,
You're not having model students. The population is the students who have been here, the model students.
so when we built our plan out, the idea was to have staff go, to have the program go, the resources go, and one of the things that I talked to our trustees about is to limit disruption and do the best we could to ensure a healthy transition, was to invite and have as many students go and community go as well. So that's why it ended up in this configuration opposed to just a dismantling or like a split or a north-south. Do you
understand what we're saying?
No, I understand what you're saying.
If you're moving the location, you're starting from scratch because you're going to lose a lot of the model students.
I would say starting from scratch is different. Would be if you didn't have a Montessori program in your school district with the resources, with the work that we've done together the last many years. Like what y'all did the first time, that was starting from scratch. That's the way that's how I. Because
I see it differently, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go with the next comment card question. This came from several people, but will families have access, this kind of ties in, to transportation for their students, and how far-reaching will any transportation be offered?
Yeah, so the current Montessori program has transportation. It's one of the things that we are going to continue to have in the plan. If it continues down this path. So as far reaching as it is, I mean, its current configuration is as wide as it needs to be. We have families that access transportation to Winn Montessori who live very far away. We would expect that to continue. That's how we ensure access. So we're not anticipating a change in how we do that. So the current access, transportation-wise, would be preserved, and as far as how wide, well, it depends on where the student is that wants to access the program. And that's already, that's.
So short answer, there will be district-wide transportation for anyone who wants to do Montessori, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we have a question here.
Hi, my name is Jose Bustamante. I'm one of the guides here. Dual language, 4th, 5th grade. You came into our classroom last year.
Yeah, it was incredible.
My biggest concern is not necessarily where the school is moving. And I can understand, I don't have children. My biggest concern is resources for what Montessori is. So I started teaching at Sims Elementary, and that school was on the verge of closing, and we were asked as teachers to come up with a plan. And we came up with a plan, and the district took us to Dallas, and we saw Montessori schools, and we said, this is what we want to do. And the way that it was presented to us was that, we had the autonomy to create a program and to decide what direction we wanted to head into, but then it turned out that there was going to be no support from the district. So that's what I have my understanding as what we're receiving as resources. I say all of that to point out that we now have a Montessori program, and it's a very expensive program. It requires a lot of more personnel. And my concern is that we're just going to move to another building, and we are going to continue to have the lack of resources of people. Just to give you some context, and I'm sure you know, last year I started out with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that we were supposed to only keep for 3 weeks, and we kept for 2 months. And that derailed my whole teaching, how I could differentiate what I could do. The year before that, I inherited a classroom, because it was my first year here, that did not have a teacher all year. So these students had no growth, no learning whatsoever. And then we were in another situation last year where the other ESL classes were in the same boat. And so I came to this school because Bridget asked me to. I was ready to quit education. I was ready to quit education and move on to something else, but I was really interested in Montessori. But my concern is that we're just gonna move into another building that's just slightly more updated, and that we're gonna continue to face the challenges of giving our students what they need when we don't have the personnel, we don't have the resources, we're sharing materials. So my concern is that the district is not doing this with fidelity. It needs to be done with fidelity. Montessori is not easy. If it was, we'd have more schools doing this, right? So I understand that you're having a hard time navigating equity and equality because, you know, we want to give schools everything that they need, but Montessori programs need more, and they do. And so how are you planning on navigating so that we are not just moving into another nicer building, but we don't have teachers? This is the first year that I think all of our classrooms are full, and there's been huge growth just in these last 2 months, in my opinion, because we have been more stable. But we didn't have that stability the last 2 years that I've been here, and it's really disheartening to see Bridget doing everything that she can to get us where we need to be, but to continue running into no's, not possible, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. So it just seems to me like, again, I use the word lip service, because that's how it felt when I was dealing with this at Sims, where we are told to come up with our best options, come up with our best solutions. And I understand that you are being met with TEA and all that stuff. So I'm just wondering what are your plans to provide us with what we need so that we can be a successful Montessori school, and so that we're not just a Montessori school by name.
So,
I also just want to acknowledge you're one of our TEIA certified teachers, right?
That means his scores were really good for his kids last year.
Okay, my name is Sandy. I'm a lower elementary guide here. This is year 7 for me, and my question matches up with the one of my colleague. And that is, I've been here long enough to see about half of the transition to the Montessori. So when Bridget came, it was a year where you had a special education teacher who stayed, a librarian who stayed, and a handful of primary staff who stayed, some teaching assistants that stayed, and then it was me in elementary. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, everybody left. And so I've been through that, and Bridget has been amazing with building up this team. So I'm just looking at it from the point of view of, you're saying it sounds great for students and for the building that you're going to put our 1/2 school into a building and then offer 1/2 of the spots to new students. And if you were going to have if all of our staff was going to move, that would mean we would only have half of the Montessori staff that we would need. If every single material that we have in our building would move, we're only going to have half of the materials that we need. So my question is echoing my colleagues in terms of, it is expensive to outfit a classroom. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to outfit part 2, the second half, because you're doubling our program essentially by moving us to a larger building and a larger campus. So my question is, I can understand the time that it might take to find the Montessori teachers, and so that can grow, and I'm curious how that process would happen, but I'm also concerned that I might find myself in a school where I can be in my own class and I can take care of what's happening in my world, but not if I don't have the materials, or if I'm having to share my one classroom materials with 3 or 4 classrooms.
Yeah, these are great questions. The first thing I would say is, from my initial response and what I've reflected on is, when Montessori, right, 22, 23, we think about Bridget coming on board, we think about all the work. Y'all, that wasn't that long ago. Like, I know, it really wasn't. Y'all, Bridget, we were learning how to support them. Sorry. This just feels weird. We were learning. The school district was learning. That's the honest truth. I would say, I'm not going to speak for Bridget, but our school district was trying to figure it out and understand how to support this program and other programs as well. I would say there are other programs in Austin ISD that have not been supported in the way that we should have supported them. And what I go back to is, okay, well, were we prepared to launch the program or not? I don't know. I wasn't here at that point in this role. I know that there was, lots of field trips. There's lots of learning and understanding, but implementation, execution is what it's all about. And I think about where we were in 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. You had lots of superintendents, lots of school leaders. You had lots of people moving in and out of the system. So I'm not surprised. In fact, I think that y'all have moved the needle in spite of lots of other kind of external conditions that some of them were in our control, some of them were outside of our control. Now, if we move forward, my objective is to do fewer things better. Like right now, we're an inch deep and a mile wide. We got resources everywhere, all sorts of different things happening in Austin ISD, and our trustees will ask me, Matthias, is it too much in some cases, right? Are we doing things that maybe we're doing them because we've been doing them, but if there are things that we're going to commit to, you better bet we're going to fund them. You better bet we're going to allocate resources to them. But we weren't set up like that. In 22, 23, when I came on board, and it was like a whirlwind, we were dealing with the TA-agreed special education TA-agreed order, and that kind of launched us in the next 2 years. So what I would say is we've done a lot of work around career literacy, early numeracy, building up our climate and culture, making sure that we have the systems in place to understand where our students are. I want to desperately get to a place where we can focus on the important work, not the urgent work, because the last 3-4 years has all been urgent. And so I would say that if we move forward, and this is a program that we're supporting, you will have my commitment to ensure that it's done with fidelity and success. I've spent time, I'm not as well versed as I'm sure many of y'all are, certainly not as well as your principal, but my role is to ensure if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. In order to do it well, we need to make sure I have the resources to do it. It's in our line items, in our budget, and that our system is responsive. I'll tell you right now that there are things that we can do in Austin ISD to ensure that we are responsive to unique programs. We haven't always done them because sometimes they go against what we've always done, but we can do them. So that's why I know that the term reset, I read an email that was offensive, and I understand why that feels that way. But from operationally, how we support the program, we do have to reset in Austin ISD. I need to figure out if talent strategy, or the group that hires, isn't successful in supporting our principal in getting the hires, or with their certifications and how we look at supporting our staff as they move through the process, then that's a change that we need to make internally. It's not y'all, it's us. But I'm not going to support something that I know we can't execute well and deliver well. The other thing I would say is programs are more expensive. Immersion programs are very expensive because we staff to language, right? So you can very quickly get into a school that seems pretty small and has a cost per pupil, through the roof. And it's not because you're spending more on a principal or more on the facility. It's because you made a decision that in this school you're going to have these programs and you're going to staff this way. Immersion programs are a good example of that. When you look at the cost per student, it's very, very high. But it's because we agreed that is what we're going to do. So that's what I would say to that is if we do this, Bridget and I thought others, we're going to do it well. I'm not going to participate in anything that's kind of half. I don't want to use that word.
Matthias, I can also add something because I was just talking today to Dr. Jay Brown, who helps us with research and evaluation. We're discussing releasing a survey once we have a vote to collect input from families about where they intend to go, what information they need before they can make a decision, if there are certain things that are important to them, so that we can, our goal is to have as much clarity as possible when we open general registration, which is, we're targeting around mid-February that general registration would open, is to have as much information as possible for families to know what will be offered at different schools, because it becomes a bit of a chicken and egg thing where we can't promise to offer a specific thing if we don't know which students will be there, right? But at the same time, families can't make a decision if they don't know what's being offered. So we're gonna do this survey, and I have a woman right here, and then I'll get to you next. That'll help us get some more information about where families want to be, and I think that might add to, or kind of respond to what you were asking, which is, if we can see how many students we expect, then that helps us understand how to staff and resource it. I'm going to go to this comment card question because I think it's a quick one, but because I want to clarify something. But they asked, why are you creating a new Montessori school that is unzoned and application-based? And I just want to clarify, when we say application-based, families will have to go in the system and indicate they'd like to go, but it's not like a merit-based application where they have to have materials or things like that. So I just want to make sure we use the word application because you have to go and indicate your interest, but it's not like an application like a match or anything like that.
Thank you. I actually spoke with you last Tuesday at the Baptist Church. Thank you for coming back out here. The comment that I made was specifically about busing and kids in special ed who often have private therapies after school. I'm not going to repeat that question because I don't want to waste anyone's time. But the point that I made was that if you have private therapies or anything else after school, busing is not an equalizer for you because you still have to drive to go get your kid. And then, and I'm going to come back here because it feels weird with my back to people. Busing does not work for children who have aftercare programs or for kids who have private therapies or other things directly after school that parents are required to pick their kids up to take them to. So for 3 and 4-year-olds who do not qualify for going to City Rec Centers or Boys and Girls Club or any of these other programs, they will stay at the school that they are currently attending until their parents are able to pick them up. It doesn't cut down on commuting for us. That's one point that I want to make. When you were having your work session with the board, there was discussion about, instead of going to Gavali, going to one of the other 2 schools, Ortega or Zavala. The Ortega is about equidistant, and Zavala is even farther away from this community that the school is serving, which makes that commute even harder, makes it less accessible. Another point that I want to make that I feel like several people have been trying to bring up before me is that the educators and the students create a symbiotic relationship, and that is what makes Montessori successful. So yes, we are faced with 3 Fs. We're slated for a C this year. We are so close to making that, and yes, I understand that TEA does not care about that. They care about the 3 Fs that we currently have. If this program is moving to another location, even with 100% of the staff, there's a very good chance that you're getting just a very small portion of the kids from this school, from this neighborhood, going all the way to another school. Mind you, a receiving school that doesn't want us there. They don't want us there, we don't want to go there. I really think that we need to be concentrating on Northeast, and then the problems in East Austin, concentrate on those problems there. There is a geographic difference there. The cultural difference is not dissimilar. Is not dissimilar. There are poor Black, brown, and special ed kids here too that have not been served well. I digress. Moving us to another location with just a fraction of the students, I'm concerned that that school that's receiving a fraction of our kids is still going to get another F, because we're not going to see the success that we would with the symbiotic relationship where we have the institutional knowledge, academic knowledge between both parties. The other point that I want to make is that Go Valley, if we are still considering Go Valley, has 39% of their student body in special education. My child who is in special education and other people here with kids in special ed, we understand how deeply resourceful a school has to be in order to accommodate those kids. I cannot in a million years fathom, where we are already struggling with resources, how we're going to provide resources for 39% of a student body to learn a complete new pedagogy. I don't see how that's even possible to be successful. The last thing I'm going to say, I'm sorry I'm monopolizing time here. Have we talked to in either of our neighboring schools to see if they would consider what the temperature is on receiving Montessori? That way we'd be able to retain more of our student body as well as more of our staff. Have we talked to either of our neighbors about whether or not they would consider receiving Montessori? Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing a lot of that, and I agree with you on several fronts. Regarding the speaking to, we're in this moment now where if we need to have conversations to explore, I want to be really honest with our trustees and our community what that means and what that looks like. Those who know me, Nadia probably knows, like I will pivot, I will do what's required to ensure that we have the best plan considering the circumstances. Now, the board of trustees asked me to look at different things. That's why Montessori is clearly called out as one of these we'll continue to look at. Have I had direct conversations with those communities about this specific program move? Not in a formal fashion is the way that I would say it. But we are now going through and having conversations and trying to figure out if there's anything that we missed before we got to this point. And if there's support and consensus, then you are happy. I am very happy to progress the conversation as needed to continue to address the challenges we have, but also find a solution that is a better fit. On the other side, I have to just think through if that's the place we end up going, the fact that I'll still have a surplus of seats, we'll still have a surplus of seats in that community, and that's a separate thing, all right? I mean, but I just want, that is why we're doing it this way. Again, I want to find the best solution given circumstances. None of them are going to be perfect, but I will commit to continue those conversations. And that's why, as a statement on the draft deliverable, I said we're continuing to look at these specific elements of the plan.
I want to just add that you've mentioned maybe not these students in a couple different ways when we keep saying yes, these students. I want you to consider if 5 years in the future, this Montessori unzoned school is working because it has a balanced population of Montessori students, but those Montessori students are all affluent. We don't have Title I status any longer. They're kids who were in private Montessori before, so they are experienced Montessori students, and the balance is working. But it's only because we lost the guardrails. The only way, because I know growth is part of why this is desired, right? The new campus is larger, growth from all over the district. It's in the portfolio. It's part of the draw. And also, you want to hold on to the enrollment guardrails. And so I want you to think about, as you're helping shape these decisions, if in 5 years the reason it was successful was because we had to remove those guardrails in order to have enrollment do the enrollment tool you needed it to be, and to do the seats role you needed it to be, and it just no longer has any of the guardrails that this school has and that this community is interested in. By the way, this community would not be interested in that school. And I think that that's a misunderstanding of this community, because some of us do have affluence and influence. The idea that you think not...
You said I think.
I know, that's why I stopped. I think it has been thought about this community, particularly in the conversation of not giving them a new school, right? That folks are seeking shiny things and want what is nice and new. And in reality of this community, we have built a thing so that it can work for this community, which is largely Black and brown, highly experiencing poverty, highly learning English. And so I did want to voice that. I understand, Allie, I've been coordinating with all these folks, so this is something I've been asked to share. So I do want to say that. So if you look back and it turns out why it worked was because you had to remove all of those guardrails, removing them is part of why you would lose this community as well.
I'm going to go to the person behind you, and then I think you were next.
Hi, Norma Flores Lopez. So I want to go back to this community engagement piece and keeping in mind and centering the population that Nikki just described in regards to who Winn Montessori is. While this is a beautiful crowd of people, this is not everybody that sends their kids here. This is a Title I school, and the majority of the folks here are unfortunately people that are not able to be in this room. And that's what I'm very deeply concerned about, is the fact that they're not here. And from the parents that we do have the opportunity to engage with, particularly Spanish-speaking parents, they have no clue about what's happening, and that is alarming. And so I wanted to hear about specifically what the district is doing to let those parents not only know about what's happening, but to have an actual voice and meaningful engagement and decision making, because this is their children too. And I think that's very heartbreaking why all of us, we know we have that privilege of being able to be here at 4 o'clock on a Monday, and there's a lot of parents that are terrified, not only because of the fact that they're working, to be able to put food on their tables in this terrible environment, but they're terrified of ICE. They're terrified of not being able to provide for their families and being separated. But not only that, but they don't even know what's happening here. And it's not once in a while, it's every family that we've spoken to that is in Spanish that doesn't even know that the school is closing, doesn't know that they have an opportunity. So I'm just really concerned about how they haven't been reached out to. I've been working with our parents support specialist, and he's been asking the district for resources, and they just tell him, play back some of the videos and just explain what's happening in Spanish, and that's not the same as engaging with that community. And I think that's a big, huge gaping hole, and why there's some of that distrust about, is the district going to be able to support us, because we haven't seen that even with just informing some of these parents. And so I would love to be able to hear, maybe there's something I'm missing that you guys are doing, but I'm just really concerned about who's not in this room.
Yeah, so I'll have Ali kind of chime in after I start. So I'm committed to engagement. Like I will show up, I will be present. This is a large effort. There's a lot of things occurring simultaneously in Austin ISD. That's just the honest truth. We kind of lean into, what's available before we come into a space. So, sometimes it's early in the morning, sometimes it's late at night. We will show up. So I can't speak to why 4 p.m. and not 7 p.m. or why not Saturday. I will tell you that we are balancing many things, and it's really important that we get here and we're present. But in every instance, there's always going to be someone who's not at the table. And so for us, we have to figure out how do we get their voice into the process, right? So we've obviously gone through the comment cards. Yes, we've had large community meetings. Yes, we voice, even like you're sharing with me that there's still missing voice in this area. Now, when it comes to decision making, I want to be honest about, there are some things that are not going to be possible. I mean, that's the honest truth. I mean, and it's not because Matthias doesn't want them to happen. It's because the pressures that we have in the system are gargantuan. They're just huge. And if we don't address them, then I'm not going to be doing, what I should be doing for the 70,000 students. I have to think of the whole, right? So I try to come down, understand lived experience, do the best I can, inform, support, and then go back and forth. So if there are other things that we need to do to engage with this specific community, please let us know. We work with Principal Farr. So Ali right here is Ali right here. But I just want you to know, we are committed to engagement. We learn, we adjust, we refine. At any point, it doesn't feel like that's occurring. We need to know. But I also don't want anything to be a reason why we just don't take action. I've heard lots of times, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm saying, we need to spend time on planning implementation. Where we fail is whenever we don't plan the sequence of things that have to occur to ensure our students are successful starting the 26-27 school year. I've seen it, and I'm not going to belabor this, but I've seen it whenever we make changes in the spring semester. We can engage, and then all of a sudden be at the exact same place in 5 months, but we lost a lot of time planning, and it's going to hurt our students. And so I would prefer that if there's something that really requires us changing, we talk about what that means timeline-wise, agree to it, but not agree to just forget the challenge that we as a district have to support and manage. But Ali's the person that you speak to.
Yeah, and I'm happy to connect with you, also Mr. Garcia. So something that we did do is we looked at all of the comment card responses and any campuses that either didn't have responses or had a low response rate. My team met and came up with a plan for how to do more outreach to those campuses. So we did more direct messaging through text. We printed out flyers and delivered them to the campuses so that people could have QR codes. I know many campuses, their PTAs had different events, and so they actually had like iPads and laptops and helped people. We told our PSs they could fill it out for families. So a lot of different campuses have done creative things, and we were able to reduce the number of campuses. I can say with confidence, the only campuses that don't have responses as of this date are campuses that have almost no changes proposed. Every other campus, we've gotten that response rate up, but I'm happy to work with Mr. Garcia, with you, and we did have a fair number of Spanish-speaking responses. My team had to translate it so that the subject matter experts could understand the content. But we're happy to continue working with y'all to make sure that we get more responses there. Okay, so I know I called on, give me 1 second. I called on you, there was a gentleman, I'm sorry, you, then you, there's a gentleman here, and that's as much as I can remember at once. I have some of these other folks, so you are next. Would you like to concede to? Okay, well, I'm gonna. These folks also have, so I'm gonna go here to this gentleman and then back there. All right.
First and foremost, I know many of you may not agree with this, but I am very thankful for Matthias, and I'm thankful for our board. I'm thankful for these hard things that they are doing. Let's be honest, there's not one school district in Texas, probably in the United States, is not going through funding issues. We've had these issues for a while, but now we're dealing with them. And so I spoke last week, and some of the things that I said probably were not very kind, as I do read everything that comes across from AIC. I get it from 4 schools. I get it from where I work, and then I also just read to make sure I'm abreast to all of the information. I was asleep the other night, woke up out of my sleep, as I've been doing, because this is giving me a lot of anxiety. And so I woke up, I had an idea, and I have a child that goes here, he's pre-K 3, but my plan was not to have him continue here because I have a daughter at Blanton. So he's 3 and he's here all day, so he can go to Blanton next year all day. So he's gonna go there and hopefully, cross your fingers, that he can go there next year. My idea is that we have portables here where Pecan Springs is in. Miss Bridget and Miss Williams, they've already worked together, and they're on different things, just managing the playground, coordinating, sharing things and stuff like that. Maybe it could work where maybe Winn moves into the portables, and Pecan Springs moves into the school, and then when Pecan Springs school is ready, when their school is finished building, we move all of us over to Pecan Springs. The reason why I thought of it is because parents are saying we need to stay in this community. We want to be here. Pecan Springs is not that far down the street. It would be a lot closer than any of the schools that you've proposed. I know that you're looking at closing facilities. I don't know, that's just an idea that I had, to maybe move in the portables and have them move in here, or have them move in here with us and change the name, or whatever you need to do to maybe make that work. And then we would absorb Pecan Springs students if they wanted to be a part of the Montessori program. That's just the idea I have.
No, and those are, we can do lots of things. I will say that what would complicate that is the fact that Winn has 3 unacceptable accountability ratings, and so does Pecan Springs. And so really what helps us break the accountability chain is reassigning students to campuses and then having that campus receive the TAP plan and then working with that campus to break it. I'm not saying that there aren't creative ways to maybe pitch something, but it would be more of a strategy pitch, assuming the Pecan Springs community was engaged, involved, supported all of this movement. Because one of the things I'll say is, because of how big the overall plan is and what we're working through, just given our size, there are different elements of the plan that we really have to walk the agency through and show them, hey, we're being very thoughtful and intentional in ensuring that our students get what they need to be successful. If we can demonstrate that, then you get, the opportunity to perhaps implement. But it would say if Pecan Springs did not have the accountability ratings that it did, that would make that plan a lot easier to implement. But I'm happy to explore it. I know through the kind of iteration after iteration, there are lots of different scenarios. I know many of them, I don't know all of them. But one of the things that I'm doing as I dive deeper into this specific kind of challenge is to become familiar and then be able to respond to each of these other ideas that have come out. Because there are some ideas that are coming out that, if it's something we can do, I want to explore it. I used to be really clear to our trustees, this is what we're not going to be able to do because we're taking this path versus this path. So is that helpful? Yeah. The assignment of the students is what's required for the agency.
I'm going to come back here and then over there.
Hi, my name is Lau Blanco. I'm a parent. We are zoned for Winn. This is our neighborhood school. 6 years ago, AISD went through consolidation. We're going through it again, as everybody knows. I classify this as a trend. Our kiddo's in first grade. I'm struggling to justify keeping him in a system where we can't even plan for middle school at this rate. I've asked, and it doesn't really seem that the ISD has a strategic plan beyond consolidation. What is the ISD doing now to prevent the next consolidation in 5 to 6 years?
Yeah. So I would say, you said trend. So I was here in 2019. I saw that work. I oversaw much of the work. I would say I do not want to be here. Like, this is the most painful place I've ever been in professionally and probably even personally. This is horrible. I hate that our community's going through it. I hate that I have to be the person to lead us through it. I don't want this for anybody. I desperately want to get to a place where we are thriving, growing, like it's sustainable. Or, like I said before, we've been tackling urgent. When 2019 occurred, shortly thereafter, the pandemic happened, and then all bets were off. We had mass exodus of staff. We began to rebuild. We had leadership changes. We didn't have systems in place, and so the last 2.5 years, we've been working. I mean, you're not only working here at Winn, like, we are moving early literacy outcomes, moving early numeracy outcomes. I mean, there are presentations that we've been giving over the last many months that show like our system is responding and it's happening our way. So it can't be a trend, but I also don't want to say it'll never happen again. Because I don't know what could or couldn't happen at the federal level, what could or couldn't happen at the state level. I will tell you right now, there's a comment over here about ICE, like immigration is hammering us right now. I have so many immigrant families that chose to not come to Austin ISD or chosen to leave. To the tune of over 2,000. That's millions and millions of dollars that those students represent. But what's most disheartening is that those students, in some cases, are still here. They're just choosing not to come to school because of the fear that's in the system. And that is like what's most disheartening about all of this. So I want to get to a place where there is more understanding and a thoughtful approach to what we're doing academically, what we're doing when it comes to our strategy around being inefficient, when it comes to staffing, so that you as a parent, anybody as a parent in Austin ISD understands what they're going to get out of us as their student moves through our system. And I tell you, at the end of the day, what we keep coming back to is our values. Like, we've agreed on certain things. If that's not who our community is, then we will change. But I have not understood that. I desperately believe, I believe that our approach is sound. I wish we had more time. The 23, 24, and 25 accountability coming out within 5 months of one another, like, really put us in a difficult spot. So no, it's not a trend. I hope it's not a trend moving forward. But I can tell you, if we only do a piece of this plan, or if we only tackle a quarter of it or half of it, we will be here again. There's no doubt. We'll be here again. Because my argument is that if we have the resources to ensure every student gets what they need, then those students, those schools that have historically maybe not had accountability will. They'll have the resources. And that will draw families in. Lots of families are making decisions based on very limited information. Y'all know how awesome Winn is. But there are families that may move in and just see the ratings, and they're going to make a different decision. And that happens all throughout Austin. So that's our approach. We're moving forward. I don't want it to be a reoccurrence. In fact, I don't know that I can get one. That's just the honest truth.
Matthias, I'm going to just add to that because I think one of the challenges when you have so many under-enrolled schools is that, for example, I'm in the communications department, and families have asked us when we were at Marshall, like, what does every single Austin ISD middle school offer, right? And it is hard to answer that question right now, because we might have standards that we say we want every middle school to offer, but if they have a small student body, it's hard for that class to make, right? And it's hard to fund a staff for a very small class when you have budget constraints that we have, right? And so I think one thing that we, as we move forward with our academic planning, is that we can actually get to a place where we can define what needs to be offered, that there's actually a robust enough student body at each of our schools to be able to offer it, and then the funds to actually make it happen. And so that, I know I'm personally looking forward to that, because it would be much easier on us if we could say, I can promise you that no matter what, these are the things that are offered at an elementary level, these are the things that are offered at middle, and these are the things that are offered at high, and then there might be extras, right? But this is that baseline, and that's something that we have struggled to do, and this process will help us do. And I think with that ability to communicate it more clearly, that's gonna, I think, help recapture families that maybe have decided they're not gonna wanna stick with Austin ISD temporarily, hopefully.
Hi, my name is Camille Saylor. I've attended Austin Independent School District, elementary, middle school, and high school. I now have a daughter at Winn Montessori. I taught high school AISD for about 10 or 11 years. This is my 4th year at Winn. I myself am a product of Austin Independent School District special education at a time when there was a lot of change in special education. Some of it at AISD my mother fought for. I said I would never be a teacher because of the way it made me feel. Here I am now, working with kids so they don't have the same experience I had. My question is, if AISD believes in having a Montessori, wherever it is, you need to have someone at the district level with Montessori experience and a Montessori background in being a leader in a Montessori school, not a Texas public education school, because that's not what we are. We are Montessorians first and foremost. We need someone at the district level to fight for us. We also need a principal who knows what they're doing. We have one, and it's her choice if she wants to go. But if she doesn't, we can't just have some principal from another public school. It's not gonna work. It's gonna fail again. And it's starting all over, wherever we are. So my question is, when it comes to you all selecting principals for new campuses, what can we do in maybe helping influence you all to consider someone who's Montessori experienced in leadership at the campus level and also at the district level?
So you're an AISD graduate, did I hear that? Do you mind if I ask where you went to high school at? McCallum. Where did you go to middle school at? Lamar, awesome. Elementary, sorry. All right, I'm gonna give you something before you leave. You know, I'll remind me. I'm gonna speak specifically to the principal. So what to do to communicate to me, you're doing that. Trust me, I am not lost that the leader of this school, the leader of a future school, has to have all the knowledge, the understanding of a true Montessori model, have experience being successful in it, and that doesn't come out of someone who just is transitioning from another elementary school. I recognize that. I think Bridget's done a tremendous job in a very difficult spot. There's no doubt. But as we move forward, it's really important that I identify these leaders sooner than later. And here's the reason. We put a milestone out there in early December, and that's really an effort to ensure that staff who we love and care for and we want to stay in Austin ISD, stay in Austin ISD, right? And so once you hire the principal and there's agreement and an understanding of why this person is the right leader, they then can move to hire staff. And that way our families have a clear understanding of what to expect before you're too far along into the registration process, which is why time matters. If I wait till December or January, then we're into the spring semester hiring becomes a completely challenging place for us to be. So that's the approach that we're going to take. If there are more things that you'd like to send me, please send them to me. A copy of Lakeisha Drinks, our chief of staff. If you think there are different skill sets or requirements that you want to have us consider, please send those along. I do not do anything without spending a tremendous amount of time trying to understand what the best fit is. And in the rare instance that we don't find that person, then we have the ability to slow things down just a tad. But I want to make sure that everybody understands the reason we set this timeline is I want to protect staff. I want to make sure our staff know who is going to be leading these schools, and then we make those decisions early. And if a staff doesn't want to be at that school or wants a different experience in Austin ISD, we offer that. And all of that completes before we offer a single position outside the district. So thank you for sharing that. I can certainly reach out. If you shoot me an email and copy Lakeisha, we can also take it that way. But that's a big part of this work.
Okay, we are actually already at time, but I know that we had some technical difficulties and got started a tiny bit late. So I saw 3 hands that I'm going to call on: Ms. Bradley, Nadia, and then you'll be our last question.
Actually, I've heard so much, and I'm not even sure if I really have anything much to say, but I do have maybe 2 or 3 questions, and I'll do it as quickly as I possibly can. Some of you know me well. Actually, you had stated 45 students, at least you had told me maybe a couple of weeks ago or so, that 45 students here would transfer to Hart.
That we're in the attendance boundary
In the
assigned.
So
not transfer. They were the students who get to transfer wherever they would like.
Well, they'll be zoned to
Correct.
Hart. And
Correct.
so where is that 40, where are those 45 students located?
It's that weird little island that, for whatever reason, is not actually connected to Winn's boundary.
We have the boundary on the map. We can probably.
Okay.
It's
Okay. Okay. So I thought you were speaking of another location.
That little yellow dot.
Okay.
So you can see it. I guess that one's not moving, but behind you, Ms. Bradley, you can see it.
Oh no, I'm good. We can move on. We
Yeah.
can move on.
It's that yellow.
I'm good. Really. The other thing is, I'm not sure is being captured of what is really important here. This community actually lobbied for the Montessori program. So did Sims. It was going on at the same time, so Bustamante was correct. We went to Dallas. We looked at Christine Moss Elementary, which was a Montessori school. Somehow, Winn ended up getting the Montessori program. I have a granddaughter here. She's in the 3rd grade. One of my biggest, I guess my question is, kids may go to other schools, they may transfer to other schools after being here for years in the Montessori program. How is the district going to help them adapt to a traditional program? The other thing is more of a comment. I don't want to see another survey. I mean, no, I'm serious. How many surveys can you give
Well,
out?
that's to go into staff. Ms. Bradley, hopefully, are you employed by us at this moment?
No, I was employed by you people in meaningful engagement and wouldn't be surveyed. There's a survey for everything, and you think everyone is going to fill those out. There are some people that are just not, because in some cases they may not have the skill set too, but they know what to say. So these type of engagements are important.
I agree.
But then my other question is, I haven't seen an academic plan, so how would you support those students that have been in this program since 3rd, 4th, and 5th? And how are you going to ensure that they can adapt to a traditional program? I said I had 3 questions, right?
I think you're on 5.
One more. The other thing, at a board meeting, you said the board did not want you to go under 15% with the fund reserve. What are you all sitting at right now?
What are we at? Where's Katrina at? I think we ended up at the end of the school year at closer to 17%. And so because we were cutting at the end of the year, and that contributed to the fund balance. But also, Ms. Bradley, and you all probably were tuning in, we're actually having to extend a line of credit in order to cover cash, because fund balance is, from beginning of the fiscal year to end of fiscal year, if you sum all of it together, the revenue and the expenses, then you end up that total amount. But over the course of the year, we have huge expenditures at the beginning of the school year, and our fund balance draws down, and then right around this time in November, we begin getting funds from the county property tax, And so it comes in November. Now what's happening this year, so I don't want to alarm anybody, but we are going to be extremely tight on cash, and we're looking to go like negative to where I need to extend a line of credit. The state law, the one that's being voted on, right, around homestead exemptions, that has caused all the property, the appraisal districts throughout the state of Texas to delay how they go through the process of sometimes releasing their bills or how they're going to get funds coming in. So those are our dollars. So now they're coming in slower, so the exposure in the month of November is longer. So we got to 17%, but even with 17% at the end, we're still going to actually have to borrow for about 6 days in the second week in November because of that nuance around money coming in late. So that's where we are, and it's just the reality of how cash plays into all of this. Our payroll per month is about $53 million, and then the total outlay, meaning like other expenses, is closer to 57. So it's a big system, and that cash, that balance allows us to make sure that every single person gets paid. The one thing that can never happen is disruption to pay, ever. And I will not let that happen. You had a question
about students that are going from Montessori to non.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We haven't talked about this, and glad Stacia's sitting next to you. We are creating bridge teams. These are teams that are coming together that include both school communities to understand each student and each student's experience through this process. Some of it will be at the school level, like PTA, CAC, program, but it's going to go student by student and say, okay, this student has these needs. How are we going to support him or her through this process? So it'll be reflected in the bridge teams. That'll be campus to campus based on transition. So you're going to have, see that. And then I am going to hold everybody accountable by tracking key performance indicators and milestones to deliver on that plan. So that's how it's going to work for each student in this experience. Theoretical? Well, so I can't create a plan unless I have community involved. So I can't tell you, this plan is changing. I do the work, Ms. Bradley. I work. I deliver as best I can. I'm not going to put anything out there that I don't think we can execute and do well. But to your point, I can't do something without community voice and input. I mean, if this plan changes.
I believe in the engagement. I guess what I'm saying is that this district has a tendency of coming up with these theories that they feel would work. And then they will try to implement it. And then the next thing you know, they're standing there maybe for the first month, and then the next thing they have left. And so the school is trying to implement something that the district put in place. The other thing is that there are several schools around here that are open. This program could go into one of those. It's a community program, and that's what we should be looking at. And for some odd reason, we can put things into Ortega to keep it open. We can put things into Go Valley to keep it open. Well, we need to think of these schools the same way we think of Ortega and Go Valley.
And I just want
Thank
to
you, Ms. Bradley.
Ms. Montgomery, our CFO, was here and had to go because there's an ad hoc meeting, but the budget ended at 18.6%. Yeah. Yes. Is it related to this? Yeah. Okay, please do, yes.
Translation does not mean understanding. I think that ustedes no se dan cuenta que traducir esa vaina no hace que la gente entienda. Y esa es la razón por la que las familias en español no llenan las encuestas. ¿Sí? Yo soy una persona altamente educada, hablo 4 idiomas y me ha costado un montón de trabajo entender lo que está pasando. Y me parece injusto. Okay, so I wanted to do it in Spanish because it's my home language, but translation does not mean understanding, right? So the fact that you think that just translating that will mean people will engage is disingenuous, and it is also disrespectful, right? It takes a lot of time, even for somebody as me, which is highly educated, to understand what is going on, right? Like I have to read 3 times Nikki's or Nadia's emails to be able to understand what is going on, right? So, and by that I mean it's disruptive, right? And that leads me to the fact that, look, you had a program who has taken a lot of effort from parents, from the community, from the staff. This staff is amazing, right? They have done great stuff, right? You had a problem of failing schools. You don't have that here. You had an F, but you had a school who is growing. You had a school that is engaged. You had a school that is Montessori, is a dual program that is serving a diverse community. Why would you want to disrupt that, right? I mean, how is that going to serve your actual long-term goal of having schools that do not fail, having schools that Tia is not going to come on your neck, and just like really serving equity and the students' population and the community, right? Like I don't, like from everything you have said, like I agree with her. Like I agree, I understand that you guys are under a lot of pressure, right? This administration sucks. I get it. But it is like, why are we doing things, right, that is actually disrupting something that is good?
So thank you for that. I'll just respond briefly because I really appreciate those comments. We can always do better engaging. I mean, that's just the honest truth. We try. There's always an opportunity for improvement. And what we learn helps inform where we ultimately get. I also want to be really clear that there are lots of other schools that are in similar situations. There are 8 other schools that have 59s. There are 3 others that have 58s, 2 that have 57s, and they have seen significant growth. I mean, there is 45, 55, 59. And those schools are incredible too, and they're doing incredible things. And so I know that we're talking about Winn Montessori, but I just want you all to know that there are lots of other really awesome things happening with schools that have very similar kind of histories and somewhat similar trajectories. Because I wanted to share that because it is hard. It is really, really hard when you have 116 schools to get it right. And I don't know that we are, but we're trying.
Can you hear me? So I think that I was hoping that we were going to come here today and then you guys were going to have vetted all these ideas that we gave you. But since that isn't where we're at right now, I'm just going to list those ideas. And I think it spins off of what you were saying. I think that we know there's a lot of schools around us that are struggling. And I think when we look through stuff, we say, hey, everyone's struggling. And for a very different reason for each school, maybe this school wants to team up with us for this reason. And so none of these are we saying like we need to take over those schools. I think nobody feels that way. And I think, but yet we put forward this idea in a constructive way of like maybe there could be a collaboration. And I'm not going to go through the reasons why we picked these for each one, but it happens to be all the schools that are around us, and that is because we're also looking for something that was local. It included elementary schools, Andrews, Pecan Springs, and Jordan, as well as Pickle, and the Sims Elementary campus, which is currently empty, and the Bertha Salamines and Gus Garcia campuses, which have empty space. So I wanted to just put those out in the record. And then I did want to ask a question about our surrounding schools also are experiencing unacceptable ratings 1, 2, and 3. And right now our TAP is currently slated to go to Andrews. And so maybe that'll stay the same, maybe that'll change. But whichever school gets our TAP, they also inherit our timeline, if I understood. So my question is, Andrews, if Winn were to get a 4th F this year, which of course everyone hopes that we all get C's, and if Andrews was to get a 4th F, Pecan Springs was to get a 4th F next year, is there a contingency plan that goes along with all of our elementary school TAPs that includes closure or 1882 partnership like is planned for the middle schools?
Yeah, so this is something that's come up with in conversations with our trustees. So for those of you that don't know what an 1882 partnership affords a school district is a 2-year pause. So typically what would happen is if we didn't have all these years back to back to back, you would get your first unacceptable rating, your second unacceptable rating, you would draft your plan, right? And then you would implement your plan in year 3, and then 4 and 5 to break the accountability chain and get a C or better. That's how it's supposed to work. Because of everything and the lawsuits, which we were not a part of, but because of all that, everything's been compressed. And so one of the things that we are proposing for Dobie, Burnett, and Webb is that as we monitor this school year, if we don't see growth, or if we have a concern that they're not going to get a D or better, because D pauses, right? D is good. D is a movement in the right direction, it pauses. Then we can actually make a decision and execute an agreement with an 1882 partner. And that would allow for this year, the year that we're currently in, to be considered one of the 2-year pauses, right? So it would mean that the 4th year would not count against us. The only caveat, this is where it gets really, really tough, is you have to make the decision before they actually take the STAR test, right? They call it the Dallas rule. Years ago, there was a closure that occurred after, they said what they did is before the school year started, they said if the school makes an F, we'll close it. If it makes a C, we'll leave it open. And so that was kind of like a loophole that's since been closed up. And so the way that we have to address it is whatever we decide to do, it has to be done before the students take the STAR test. So in the late spring, right? So could these plans include that contingency? Yes. In fact, our trustees have expressed to me, not in a large room, but one-on-one, that they would like to see that type of contingency plan included in these. But I also know how most of our community responds to 1882 partnerships. Because in the way the agency accepts them is has the partner demonstrated the ability to turn around a school. And there aren't lots of partners out there that have. We have lots of partners that do all kinds of great things, but they're looking for very specific elements or skill sets. So yes, closure, it would look different. Because closure wouldn't necessarily give you a pause. You'd have to close before they actually took the test. I'm not sure how that would work. It would look a little bit different. But 1882 would be one.
So this just increases the importance, I think, of talking to our neighborhood schools about what our vision is of our elementary schools in the neighborhood, because I think in 1 to 2 years, if we have any of our schools looking at closure, and then this program that we had that was quite successful and has been released from its TAP, like I feel like there are many opportunities for collaboration that could help keep a neighborhood school open, and someone else may also like the idea of going on that pathway with us as opposed to
and I'm happy to, I know it seems like a long time. The board meeting was last Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we moved into a pretty challenging weekend, just honestly. And so we're coming back together, we're doing the work, we're progressing the work this week, where there's lots of meetings occurring. So I can speak to some of the, because I read your list, and there are some thoughts I have around why some could be considered and why some couldn't. Specifically the last two schools that you listed, the last 2 groups of schools. But yeah, I mean, we're happy to have this conversation. If there's a school that's nearby that wants to engage in that conversation, I'd be happy to have it and explore it together as a school community. What I don't want to have happen is the counter position, which is, well, now you're just replacing us, right? Which is I understand why that would be the case. The last thing I would say is if we were to go to Go Valley, breaking the accountability chain means that Winn would be able to continue without the weight of the previous accountability ratings. You go to a school that has a 2 or 3, you're then going to assume theirs, potentially, right? So yeah, that's where you have to kind of get into the details of how the sequence would work. Closure, reassign certainly can work, but depending on where the school started elsewhere, that receiving school would have to be a closure, reassign, and then a new. So that's what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, potentially. I mean, I'm happy to have those conversations. Like I said, if we find a solution that works and our trustees can get behind it, and there's an alignment, then I want to progress it. You have that commitment for me. I know we're kind of getting.
Yes, I was going to follow up to set a time to meet with them to go through the options. That way we can look and talk to you.
Well, so here's the thing is, what I've told the communities is if the ideas come my way, I will vet and test them to see if we can actually accomplish them. Like some of them we can, some of them we can't. If they are viable, then the conversation occurs. Correct. And then if they are, then the conversation becomes, okay, let's get a couple people in the room, some stakeholders, some community members. We're not talking about getting like 300 people together and just hashing it out. We're talking about getting some key members of the community who know the school and have a good understanding of what may be accepted and what may not be accepted. And it has to be done in short order, but we can do it. And here's the thing, like, I want to find the best solution. I really do. And I will do the work, but to your point, ma'am, I think getting a conversation together, I'm not sure that I can be there, but Lakeisha, our chief of staff, or others help facilitate and bring people together to drive it, like, we can do that. And I'm also doing this at other schools, right? For different reasons, right? That came out of the board meeting and also based on conversations.
Okay, so as you can hear, the child care is getting a little bit restless, and we have teachers that are graciously.
So we want to get them home.
Yes, and so this will be our last question, and she's gonna wrap it up.
Okay, no, I'll be very, very quick. I'm probably going to piggyback off of a bunch of what has been said. I want to also personally thank you for being here, for having this kind of a conversation. It's been very, very helpful, and I appreciate all the comments that we've been able to hear so far. I want to say that I agree, and I believe we agree, that the district can't afford to lose students or have a district takeover, and we really want to work together to try to help solve the problem. We've heard a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts. We've also talked about why we believe the ISD needs Montessori to remain here, that we're actually, as the program, bringing in dollars to the district by our enrollment and by our waiting list. Question to piggyback off this is there any reason that the Montessori program couldn't be located temporarily at a swing space such as Sims while we are working through the TAP and considering that there might be more changes, as has been mentioned, next year if maybe another school such as Andrews or Pecan Springs possibly gets another F and needs a restart. Maybe there's a more permanent Montessori home or another set of choices that could come about because of other factors.
Yeah, so quick response. The reason a swing space probably won't work is because there's not currently a school there. And so if there's not a school there, I have to go to the commissioner, the Texas Education Agency, and ask for them to allocate a CDN number. The CDN number is what gets attached to your accountability rating. And I will tell you that in my experience in working with the agency, they're not going to allow you to start a school unless you have a thoughtful plan, you understand how you're going to staff it. You know, everything has built up, and they also know what we're working through with right now. So we do have open dialogue with them to make sure that we're not kind of getting over our skis on any one of these things, but that's why a swing space probably wouldn't work in that way. The better strategy to move is to go to a school that already has a CDN, because you can always change programs in a school, but you can't just create new schools. Is that helpful? But yeah, no, I appreciate that question. It's a very good one to ask and helps me provide clarity. But I am committed to looking into working with other schools to see what. And if y'all are having conversations and you know that there's a school that's open to having the conversation, you gotta let us know too.
Yeah, Northeast has started to have community conversations. Like, we're trying to do a lot more collaboration because it feels like we are just more knowledgeable about our community, and that's always going to be true for a variety of reasons, including a lot of our leadership is not from this area of town. And so as those happen, because they keep happening, we'll share out what people come up with.
Well, I mean, yeah, I need to have these conversations sooner than later.
Yeah, no, like
As soon as it's done, we're going to get on the calendar.
Thursday, yeah.
We got 2 meeting commitments, so I
Okay.
Okay, and while we're talking about timelines, just wanted to do a quick reminder of everyone. So we have a board meeting this Thursday where the board will discuss this revised plan. The final recommendation will be going to the board at their November 20th board meeting. And that's the Thursday before fall break. So we'll be in touch. Y'all know how to get a hold of us. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful comments, ideas. We really appreciate y'all.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Superintendent.